What do you think about the footage I shot with the Osmo Pocket 3 in normal color without doing any color grading? I think I got fantastic results. This just shows you how important it is to focus on the basics like exposure, composition, white balance to get great results. Anyway, let me share with you what settings I used and how I exposed all of these shots. Starting with the settings, the majority of the shots were shot in 4K 25p, but some were shot in 50p for slow motion. Then in the image adjustment menu, I set the sharpness to -2 and noise reduction to -1 for a more natural looking image. In terms of focus, I only used single point focus to prevent the camera from focus hunting. As for color, I used normal color and I turned off the glamour effect. As for white balance, I adjusted it manually depending on the scene. However, if you are not very good at manually adjusting the white balance, I would recommend setting it to automatic, letting the camera adjust it for you for a few seconds and then switching it back to manual to lock it. This will prevent colors from shifting all over the place. Finally, in the exposure menu, I used manual exposure with the shutter speed set to 1/50 for a natural motion blur effect and the ISO set to somewhere between 50 and 200. Regardless, to properly expose my shots, I changed the ND filter or the ISO value until the camera metering was roughly at EV plus 0.0 in very bright scenes like a landscape and about EV minus 0.3, minus 0.7 in contrasty scenes with a lot of shadows and highlights. I also used the camera's screen to judge exposure. I think it's fairly accurate. Usually if it looks too bright or too dark on the screen, something is wrong. Let me show you some examples because I know it can be a little bit hard to understand, especially if you are a beginner. So first of all, I'm going to adjust the white balance. Right now it's daylight, so I'm going to set it to 5600 Kelvin. Next, I'm going to go to exposure. It's set to manual. My shutter speed is always locked at 1/50 to get natural motion blur. And then I play around with the ISO or I change the ND filter on the camera. At this moment, I actually don't have to change the ND filter. I've set the camera to ISO 50 and it says minus 0.3 plus 0.0 on the EV, meaning that this shot is pretty much properly exposed. So right now I'm recording with the Pocket 3. Let's get a shot of this lake. 3, 2, 1. Now, if I was recording in a contrasty scene where there's a lot of contrast between the highlights and the shadows, I would do this. First of all, I would set the white balance to about 6500 Kelvin because that's the white balance you use basically for shadowy areas. Then I would go to the exposure and I would adjust the ISO or the ND filter. I would change the ND filter until the EV says roughly minus 0.7, minus 0.3. Just for this demonstration, I'm going to use the ISO, but ideally you would like to use the ND filter just to keep the ISO as low as possible to get the least amount of noise in the shot. So in this case, I think ISO 200 is going to work just fine. Actually, maybe 100 even is going to work. It says -1, but I think it looks good, especially when I look at the screen. Let's get the shot. 3, 2, 1. This actually might be a bit too dark. I think I'm going to increase the exposure to ISO 200. Let's see how it looks. 3, 2, 1. Finally, I didn't do any color grading on any of these shots, but I did do some minor color correction, like adjusting the contrast, exposure, and white balance in Final Cut Pro. These were very minor tweaks, nothing fancy. I simply adjusted the sliders in the color board to achieve proper exposure and contrast and made slight adjustments to the curves with color curves to achieve accurate white balance. If you would like me to make a tutorial on how to do basic color correction on any action camera, please let me know in the comments below. And also, here is the same sequence I showed you in the beginning of this video, but this time with color grading, so you can see how much of a difference color grading makes. Anyway, thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.